I think we're going. Look at that. Streaming live. Sweet. Hey, what's up, guys? This is gonna be a new little segment here. This is gonna be tough. The camera's up here. I want to look down here at the screen. And the computer's down here. So just deal with it. This is a new little segment. I'm gonna try to do this every single week. Weekly little updates. Primary focus is gonna be, you know, as I get going with these, looking back at the week we had. So inside at the gym, um, programming wise, principle wise, digging a little deeper into what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, um, that sort of thing, as well as expounding on, the principles of health. It's we scratch the surface with a lot of stuff in class, but can't necessarily go crazy deep with it. And also, just it gives me an opportunity to talk about whatever the heck I want to on a weekly basis. To just get on here and jab a little bit. So there you have it. Currently, it's the first of the year. It's the fourth of the year, but the first of the year, the new year just started. And that means we're coming off of two consecutive back-to-back holiday weeks where we had two holidays on Mondays. So those threw off our normal rhythm. So the past couple weeks have been looking just a little bit different around here, different than what things normally look like, what you can expect when you come to class and stuff. Normally, we've got a pretty consistent rhythm of twice a week, we're going to be lifting heavy. And those are split between, upper and lower days. So basically, once every week, we're going to do some type of lower body lift, and it's going to be heavy. Once a week, we're going to do some kind of upper body lift, and it's going to be heavy. And then the other 2 days, we're usually doing some type of what on the backside, what I call maintenance work. What I write on the board is usually accessory work. But that is more the work that is really necessary to be a well-rounded body. And so what I mean by that is if we only do the big compound lifts, I think they're critical, they're vital. But if we only do those things and we only train in a certain way, we're bound to have some pretty predictable holes that are actually fairly easily shored up with just a little bit of other work. It's not as sexy, it's not as fun sometimes, but it's really, really important in just kind of the big picture of keeping your body healthy and fine-tuned and strong in, all the nooks and crannies and deep dark corners of the shoulder and the ankle and the feet and all of this kind of stuff. That doesn't necessarily get specific training in some of the bigger compound lifts. So that's what I mean by maintenance or accessory stuff. So normally we kind of go through that rhythm, alternating between those days as far as strength work goes. And then with our conditioning work or, metabolic conditioning or whatever you want to call that, when we, throw the clock on and do something with a little higher intensity, that work usually hits one of a couple buckets every day. So usually once a week, we're doing some type of test. So what I mean by test is think about if you ever played in any type of sport, and you let's say you go out for football in high school. You play one game a week, and maybe, add up all the hours that you spend through lifting weights throughout the summer, through summer camp practices, through your two-a-day practices, through your after-school practices. Finally, we get to the game season, right? And now we kind of get into this flow of your games are on Friday nights. We used to come in on Saturday mornings and move around a little bit, and then you've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, harder practices. Thursday, chill practice, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so think about that type of mentality. A very small percentage of that is like game day, right? It's primarily doing the work necessary to perform on game day. And so that is the same kind of principle that we want to apply in our general training. So once a week, I'm throwing in something that it's like, hey, this is intended for you to kind of give your all on, right? And that fluctuates with the type of test. Sometimes it's a super short. So like this week, it was a workout that, lots of people are able to do in less than 3 minutes, right? It also could be something that's kind of like a 20-minute grinder. But whatever it might look like in the specifics, the kind of general principle applying is that, hey, once a week we want to do something that is like meant to see where you're at, right? To see what you can do on any given test. But then most of the rest of the time, we want to think of it as practice, right? We want to think of it as an opportunity to develop skills, to build strength, to build endurance, to build capacity to be able to, go out and do the other stuff, And so contrary to the testing day, usually once a week, what I call it is a sprint day. So there's one day where I'm going to write a workout with the intent that there's no pacing involved. It's just you're going at this as hard as you can, okay? And so if you know anything about going as hard as you can, that type of pace is unsustainable, right? So how that usually works is it's going to be a workout that's kind of broken up most of the time. It's broken up with some rest intervals. So it's like kind of go as hard as you can, do this work quicker than you would if this rest weren't here, right? It's a super simple thing to look at. If you look at any workout that's 5 rounds for time and all of a sudden you say, hey, put a minute of rest in between these rounds, now that does something to the work. The work you're doing there, you can afford to go faster on. You can afford a higher pace. You can afford higher intensity on that to be able, to finish the work with the allotted rest, in the quickest time, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what I mean by sprinting. No pacing involved or very little pacing involved, but generally getting higher output than something that was like, hey, go accomplish this work. It's going to take people roughly 10 to 15 minutes if you go straight through, or, work for 18 minutes straight through, get as much work as you can done. Great, great, great stuff. But a lot of times when we get into those type of workouts, we end up really throttling back to be able to have a sustainable pace through the whole thing. So once a week, we're practicing that ability to kind of go hard, right? To really crank the intensity. I probably said too much about that already. Other end of the spectrum, once a week, we are going to do something with an aerobic focus, okay? So usually that's going to mean something that stretches longer, right, into the 15 to 25 minute range. I'd love to do stuff even longer than that, but we're restrained by, an hour class. But occasionally, a couple times every year, we definitely do things over that 20, 30-minute mark, which, total opposite of what I was just saying. I'm the one talking here. You have to adjust your pace accordingly, right? You have to slow way down to be able to, maintain something for that long of a time duration. So that's a little piece of what I'm getting at with these aerobic days. But oftentimes what I'm also doing is I want to pull away any elements of skill that are going to be a huge limiting factor, as well as oftentimes any strength elements that are going to be a limiting factor there. And let it be just a more pure, test of capacity, right? Aerobic capacity. Um, and then, that's only 3 days. We've got 4 kind of core class days a week. And so I call the fourth one just a kind of a flex day, depending on where those other ones fall, just something to kind of fill in the gaps as far as hitting good variance throughout the week with, time domains and movement patterns and that sort of stuff. So that's a normal week. And then Saturdays are really a flex day. What's interesting is Saturdays, we always do partner workouts. And generally, those days actually end up feeling a lot more like those sprint interval days because you're sharing the workload with another person. And so what ends up happening is you almost always get kind of that 1-to-1 work to rest ratio as you're going through a piece like that. And so the intensity actually goes up quite a bit to allow you to, hit a movement and then you sit back while the other person is doing it and so on and so forth. As well as just that social dynamic of, you push harder when something else is on the line and somebody else is counting on you. So those are fun. That's a normal week. So now, turning the page here, where are we going? What are we doing now? So, at the start of the year, a couple things that I wanted to do. So, one is doing a lot of strength testing, okay? So, kind of baseline testing of certain lifts. So, we kind of do lots of testing throughout the year, but what I do way more often than testing like a 1 rep max, for example, is we'll test multiple rep maxes, right? How much weight can you do for 5 on a back squat or something like that, and kind of use that to be able to do different things with it. I've found that generally works better for a lot of people than kind of doing the 1 rep max and using percentage work. Because there's a number of factors that kind of make that not as an effective tool for a lot of people, and especially just people who are less developed in their training, kind of a younger training age. That way of scaling and progressing through percentages of a tested 1 rep max, it doesn't always work that great. However, I think it's good to load up the bar and go heavy. So that's one of the things that we're going to do. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be testing, I think I've got like 10 lifts, 8 to 10 lifts, and doing some of those 1 rep max testing. What we're also going to be doing is preparing for the CrossFit Games Open. So if you're not familiar with the CrossFit Games Open, or the CrossFit Games in general, it's the big competition where they do all this stuff in a super competitive way, and it's really cool. Look it up on the YouTubes. The Worldwide Open is just the first qualifying stage for this. So this part of the competition is kind of the first initial large pool of people throwing their name in the hat to go on to the further stages. But what it also is an opportunity for globally everybody, even at the super new scaled level, to kind of participate in this thing together. So that is coming up, and that is a testing ground for a lot of people. Like for me, that's like, I think that's the only competition that I actually signed up for and did last year, was competing in the Open and then going on to the next stage of it. And so it's a good opportunity to kind of test yourself and see where you're at and look back at previous years and against other people in the world and all that stuff. So one of the things we're going to be doing, along with doing some of that baseline testing of some of those lifts, is we're going to be doing a lot of prep for some of those open workouts. So that means the really easy and obvious one is doing some previous year's workouts, some of the open workouts, as well as one of the things that I'm playing with for this year is taking kind of some pieces of some of those former workouts and using them more in that kind of sprint interval type of fashion. So if a workout was a couple different movements, and it's, as many rounds of this as possible in 20 minutes or something like that. Okay, taking those movements and that rep scheme and practicing it on kind of an interval basis versus, moving consistently through it. So do that within this minute, rest for this minute, right? That sort of thing. So practicing some of those kind of loadings that you'll typically see, movements that you'll typically see, but seeing, hey, how hard can you go? How quickly can you go? How efficient can you be with some of these things? Just another way to practice some of that stuff. So that's kind of where we're going. I'm not going to do too deep of a preview on specifically like the movements and the workouts that we're doing this coming week, just because I've already been talking for a long time, it seems like. But I will do that in future weeks. So you can look forward to that next week, doing a review of some of the stuff that we have at that point have done, and then a preview of, hey, where we're going the following week. So, what is this? There's a chat thing up here, and it's got something on there. I'll figure that out someday. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. And heck, if there's this is a great way to answer different questions and stuff like that. So if you've got them, send them in, or ask me, and I can talk about them on here and blah, blah, blah. I think that's all for now. Maybe Alex will join me on some of these. I kind of just did this off the cuff today. Maybe I'll get some special guests on here. That'd be fun, right? If you want to be a guest on here, Thursday at noon. I don't know if that's the time I'll always do this, but if you're available, love to hang out. Okay, now I'm rambling.